Today you're joining me for my final session on the River Lambourn of this season. I've only fished this river once before, but having seen the potential for Grayling, I had to give it another go. As usual, I travelled very light with just a single rod and net, shoulder bag and some bait. I had my usual 11-foot Darent Valley rod, which I do most of my river fishing on at the moment, and my new Marco Cortesi centrepin reel. I'd never fished this section of river before, but as usual for the Lambourn, it contains some lovely fast glides with a few deeper stretches that I imagined the fish would be sitting in. I had some leftover casters from a previous session, and I found it makes a really nice cloudy mix if you crush them up and mix them with some ground bait. I started at the top of this stretch. I could see that it deepened off and it went round a nice bend. I did have to spend the first 5 or 10 minutes or so just feeding the caster mix in, as well as trickling some maggots to get the fish onto the feed. Not long into the session, the float buried right at the end of the run, and thinking it was a trout, I gave it a bit of stick. The fish took me into the near side reeds and I had to walk down the stretch to get to it. As it neared the bank, I could see it was a lovely grayling. To get off the mark so early on in a session is always a great feeling. Wanting to explore as much of the river as possible, I moved down to another area, and this stretch allowed me to wade from the middle of the river. Having a couple of trout early on was a good sign that there were fish in the area. I started to get a few quick bites, but I wasn't connecting with any fish, so I changed hook. This is the first thing I would say to pay attention to if this is happening. Your hook point has to be pin sharp. Changing weather conditions made filming quite tricky. Having not connected with any fish for about 15 minutes, I was about to move on, but what I discovered was that the fish were right in front of me. You'll see the float shoot under on the right of the screen. I'd been fishing past these fish the whole time, and it really just shows the importance of exploring every area of the swim. As the fish came towards me, I could see the unmistakable dorsal fin of a grayling. Moving further down the river, I found this lovely deeper area that fed into this tunnel. While stood watching the water, I could see some intrigued minnows at my feet. Not wanting to leave anyone out, I gave them some bait too. The swim wasn't as prolific as I was expecting, but after having a few more small trout and some grayling, I'd got what I'd come for, and it was time to head home. I can't recommend the River Lambourn enough. If you've got time to have a session before the season ends, give it a go. Grayling are a special fish to catch. If you haven't yet caught one, I'd definitely add it to the list. For now, my time on the Lambourn was over, with a couple more sessions elsewhere to fit in before the season ends.